Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Verabin here. We're going to do a video today about why I think Jedi Rey is the one you should be chasing. And just to be clear, I don't think you can go wrong here. I think Kylo is going to be a great character, I'm sure. A lot of the characters that you need are going to be useful to get Kylo also. I think you should probably be getting both. But I think as far as getting one versus the other, if you had to choose, then I think Resistance is the clear choice. So one of the things I did was I kind of went through a sanity check of all of the characters that we know are required or speculated to be required for First Order and Resistance, and then I looked at how hard are these characters to farm, how hard are they to gear, and obviously once you get to gear 12 plus 3 or something, then everybody's equally difficult to gear, right? But to get there, to get to gear 12, how difficult is it? And what I found was the two factions are pretty evenly matched. I think Resistance has a little bit of easier farms in a lot of cases. People like Poe, who you can get from the Cantina store, not the Cantina Energy, the Cantina store, which is pretty easy. Resistance Trooper, who there's a few different places to get to him. And it's just not that difficult to get a lot of these characters. There are some difficult characters to get. There's some hard node farms in there. You've got Resistance Hero Finn and Poe, probably Poe, right? Holdo and Rose, these are all one hard node characters. But the cool thing is because you need JTR, and we'll jump back to this later, but almost all the characters that you need to unlock Jedi Rey, you need for JTR anyway, so you're going to double dip in that way. And Kylo has the benefit of just being a single farm that you're going to farm anyway because you get a ship too, so that's definitely in their favor. But otherwise, it was pretty well matched. There were a lot of hard Cantina farms and a lot of hard node farms in there anyway. First Order, I think First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter Pilot is a really nasty farm out of the guild store, so that's one that's not good. And then they actually have have more Cantina farms in First Order, with crew and First Order officer. First Order officer is just like Poe, he's in the Cantina store. But you do have crew who's in Cantina. You've got Kylo who's in Cantina, Fox, Vet Han. So there's several characters there that are in Cantina. You don't really want to be farming a lot of Cantina characters. So Resistance does have that a little bit better because Finn is the only one that's the only place you can farm him is Cantina, and you can get him in a hard node too, but you can kind of do both. So that helps a little bit. But as far as gearing, they're all pretty equal to gear. So when we're looking at any of these characters, I tried to go through and figure out, okay, which ones are harder to gear, which ones are easier to gear. It didn't really matter. They were all kind of the same. There were difficult people to gear across the board. Obviously, the newer characters are going to be harder to gear because they've got the Kyrotechs. But if you just look at each as far as the characters that we know are required or suspected to be required, then they're between First Order and Resistance. The gear it was pretty similar, and so I didn't find a lot of differences in between that. I know some people have said, hey, JTR is much harder to farm because she's a Hero's Journey character, but my argument there is if you go for Kylo instead, you're going to immediately get BB-8. Okay, so you got to cross BB-8 off the line, right? Because now you don't need BB-8 because you already got him. So just by choosing Kylo, you get BB-8. So that you can't count that against Rey. Because my point here is to choose one or the other. So if you're choosing one or the other, then that portion isn't great. Vet Han, who you need for JTR now, obviously you need him for Kylo too, so you can't count Vet Han. And then Finn and Scav Rey you need for JTR and Jedi Rey. So those you can't really count those either. So the only one that's really left out is Vet Chewie, who we suspect is going to be required for JTR. So the point is, JTR or Jedi Rey isn't any harder to farm character-wise than Kylo. If you're choosing one or the other, assuming that Vet Chewie is required for Jedi Rey, then it's equivalent. It's basically the same thing. And honestly, it might even be easier because Kylo has a Cantina farm. So that Jedi Rey JTR is actually a freebie because if you're going to do the rest of it, you automatically get JTR. So anyway, I think I hope that logic holds up. Hope that makes sense. But anyway, that's one of the reasons why I think JTR is kind of a non-issue. as far as being more difficult to farm. The other obvious point that a lot of people have already brought up is light side territory battles, right? So light side territory battles needs a lot of high relic characters. So if you're spending time chasing Kylo, then you're really not chasing these other characters, you know, the Jedi and the clones and Galactic Republic and all those other guys. So you're going to fall behind in light side territory battle. Whereas if you chase Jedi Rey, you're gonna improve your light side territory battle. Even if the new Rey isn't great in territory battles or raids for that matter, you're still gonna do better because you've got JTR geared up to Relic 7. Scav Rey is an absolute monster at Relic 7. So regardless of whether the new Rey is good in raids or territory battles, you'll still be better to chase Jedi Rey because the characters you need along the way are better. Or are going to be needed for light side territory battle. So that's great. We already hit on raids. I think JTR has been a staple raid character since she came out 2.5 years ago, or two years ago in 3 months. So I think that was a no-brainer. I had already had her gear 13. I had Finn already gear 13. BB-8 already gear 13. So I had a lot of these characters already there. So that was part of the reason why I personally went for it. But I think all being equal, I probably still would be chasing Rey. So the other cool thing about Resistance that I haven't seen talked about much is that after Jedi Rey comes out, you'll have 3 really solid leaders for teams. You'll have to have 3 relic teams at the end of the day. You'll have JTR lead, you'll have Finn lead, and you'll have we're assuming, right, that the new Galactic Legends are leaders, which I think is a fair assumption. But you can see here kind of where I'm kind of thinking about where these might be broken down. This is kind of the 3 teams that I brought up, and I'm taking Rose Tico out of the mix because I don't think she fits very well when you break it down like this. I think Resistance Pilot is probably better under Finn because Resistance Pilot does exposes, although I'm still crossing my fingers that Rose is going to get a touch up and actually be decent. But I think that she might also fit in that lineup as well, and you could put her somewhere else. So anyway, you actually have a little bit of flexibility here. You can see I have General Skywalker standing in for Jedi Rey there, but you've got the Finn lead, the JTR lead, and presumably the Jedi Rey lead. So you've got 3 fully really solid teams. Now, granted, I'm putting Vet Han and Vet Chewie in there, so I have to actually go gear up Vet Han, even though I don't need him to get Jedi Rey. So that's a bummer. But I could still I could throw Rose in there instead of him, and it'd still be a decent team, right, under JTR. So I think that's pretty cool because in First Order you're only going to get 2 teams out of this. You're going to get 2 teams with a little bit of flexibility, but you're never going to get 3 teams, right? You just don't have enough characters unless they come out with more characters, right? So. But right now, you're gonna at the end of the day, I'm gonna be chasing Jedi Rey, and I'm gonna get her, and then I'm gonna have 3 pretty solid teams. Like I said, even if in the meantime I may have to sub in Rose for Vet Han until he gets geared up, but I'm pretty excited about that. I'm excited to have 3 strong teams because I just bumped into for GAC. I just bumped into Division 1 a couple weeks ago during the last GAC, and now I'm forced to really have to place. I've been having to place 8 teams on defense and attack 8 teams, but my teams get pretty a little bit light when I go down to 16 teams. I ended up going into these G11 teams, right? Ended up having to use my troopers. My troopers do a lot of work, but point is, if I have to go down into these deeper teams, they're not going to do a whole lot. You know, I don't really want to put my Gear 8 GBA on defense, so. Rey kind of generating and spawning, having 3 full teams, I think is really good. That means I can kind of throw away some of these other crappier teams that I've been using, these Gear 10, 11 teams. I'll have a relic team, and even if that team isn't great, it'll stomp over, any of these teams are going to stomp over, any B or C level team, right? I can beat Ewoks with any of these teams. I can probably beat Bounty Hunters with any of these teams. I can probably beat Cart with any of these teams, or Phoenix. So my point is, having those three full teams, I think, is pretty important because at the end of the day, that's something I want to get out of this, is having a stronger core team setup. So the only other thing that I wanted to touch on was the Raddus, and this is another assumption here that the Raddus is going to be used for Rey. I still think it's a possibility they're going to switch. They're going to say, hey guys, just kidding, you need the Finalizer to get Rey. because we saw that with the gas event, right? We saw where the ships didn't necessarily, or all of the levels of the event didn't follow the same faction. So I think that's a possibility. So I'm actually not, I'm kind of farming a little bit cautiously right now, because I think there's definitely a possibility there. And I have the finalizer unlocked. I don't have the Raditz unlocked, so that actually would be better for me if it was the finalizer. So anyway, I want to hit the Raditz really quick. So if the Raditz is required, Raditz is going to be a pretty decent defensive ship. It's not really that great of a ship, but you've probably maybe seen the videos recently about the finalizer. Is a really great ship on offense, so I'm not going to dispute that. There's a lot of evidence there. It's going to be pretty, it's going to be a strong ship. However, I think there's already a lot of good ships on offense, right? Even a really good Akbar ship can beat most of the other teams on offense. I see people still using Akbar in my fleet right now. And the Negotiators are a really good offensive ship. The Malevolence is a really good offensive ship. So I think we already have a lot of good offensive ships. So having one more ship that can counter one more capital ship that can counter every other capital ship, I don't know that really buys us a whole lot. 'Cause I can counter all of the capital ships right now with Negotiator. So having Finalizer to be able to do it doesn't necessarily save me anything. It's definitely a good ship, and I definitely want to get both ships. But my point is, the Raditz is a decent ship. It's a good defensive ship, and what it's going to replace in Territory Wars especially is going to be kind of crappier ships. I don't know if your guild's like this, but my guild has a lot of, we go to Territory Wars, we have all kinds of ships in defensive sets. We have, we put Tarkin on defense and Chimera on defense, and these other ships, and the Raditz is far superior to all those other ships, right? It might not be as good as Finalizer, but it's better than those other ships. So at the end of the day, at least you're getting a really good defensive ship. And because the Negotiator doesn't necessarily need Bossk and these other ships, you can kind of stack that ship a little bit. So anyway, it's going to be a good ship. I'm hoping we still get some more ships. I think there's still a possibility we're going to get like a tank ship for it. Like we've kind of speculated, maybe potentially a Zori Bliss Y-Wing. So something like that might be helpful as well. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to outline my thoughts on the journey guide here and kind of picking between the two Galactic Legends. To summarize, I think Rey and Kylo are both kind of evenly matched with how difficult they are to farm and gear. I think those are kind of on similar levels. But I think that overall, I think Rey is going to give you more bang for your buck, because a lot of the characters that you need to unlock JTR, you get from you have to use to unlock Jedi Rey anyway, so I don't think they're any more difficult to farm. And I think Light Side Territory Battles is the newest, latest, and greatest, so sorry, I had to sneeze. So it's the new latest and greatest, so I think that's going to be great. And all these characters that you're gearing up here are going to be great in GAC and in raids and all that good stuff. We're going to leave Rose Tico out of it a little bit, but there's kind of crappy characters on both sides. The Resistance here, you gotta gear up Resistance Pilot and Rose, and then when we look at Kylo, I mean, you have to gear up First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter Pilot, who's not great, Phasma, who's terrible. Phasma is really, really bad. So I think there's kind of bad news all around there for who you have to gear. So anyway, that's the video, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you made it all the way to the end. I'm doing my best to keep my videos faster, so let me know what kind of content you want to see, and we'll get it done. Thanks.